Hello and welcome back. Here I am recording a video. Sometimes sitting here in front of the camera, I feel silly. Actually, that's usually why I laugh in the first place. Always saying the same intro. Just the idea that I'm sitting here talking, number one, to a camera, and number two, I don't know, giving advice or whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't call it giving advice, but that's what it seems like. Strange. Very strange. And in these videos, the thing is, nothing I say is right or wrong. If you think I'm saying anything because I want to be correct, or because I think it's right or wrong, or am trying to teach anything, then it's not, the point is being missed. A lot of people, a lot of us, myself, we've wasted a lot of our time here arguing back and forth about what's right and what's wrong, and giving information and filling our brains with information, and then fighting about who has the better version of that information, or whose information is right and whose is wrong. And the purpose of these videos, it's not to inform you of anything at all, actually. I'm not even concerned whether what I'm saying is right or wrong. What I say, how I say it, has a certain level of importance to me in these videos, but the information is not important at all. The message behind the information is what's important, and what this video is about. If you have followed any of these videos, and for any time, then you may have had a hint of what these videos are actually trying to accomplish. I've said it in a few other videos as well, but this is a video dedicated to it specifically. The point is for all of us, including myself, to learn to be more and more authentic, more and more true to who we really are, to not live a life that is bound by what we think is the right thing to do, which was given to us from a societal standpoint of morality, right and wrong, but instead to live your life and express yourself in your life, in this life, in a manner that to you is your own version, it's your own truth, it's your own authenticity, the deepest level of you living your life the way is right for you. And no one can tell you what is right for you. And you can't learn what's right for you by trying to be something or anything other than what you already are. The only thing you can learn by trying to be something is discover what you're not. So the point of these videos is to help you find some courage to just be who you are unapologetically, to say what it is that you mean to say, to live your life in a manner that you're not thinking necessarily too much about what other people are going to think about you, and then make a decision about how to act, how to be, what to say, based on what you think you should because of the people that are around you and what their judgments of you are going to be. Now, this is kind of a tricky subject because there's an aspect of life where you don't want to make, obviously, your life more difficult or very difficult for you. There's relationships in this life, and certain ways of you being and acting, you might then challenge those relationships. You might then create situations which are not really what you want. But that begs to the question to be asked, what is it that you really want from this life? Are the people in your life really the people that you want? These videos are to help you discover whether or not the whole life you've created for yourself or allowed to be created around you, this is to help you recognize if this is really what you want. Not just for you, but for myself as well, by talking about these things, by, if you will, kind of setting an example, by being someone who talks about these things, also encourages me very deeply to do the same thing for myself. I'm not here trying to say that I have all of these things figured out. Just like everybody else, we're all figuring it out. And this is an attempt for all of us to align ourselves more and more and more and more, because for many of us this happens in levels and in stages, with the authentic version of who we are, who we came here to be, in a sense. I don't really want to say who we came here to be, because no one can truly say who it is you came here to be, but we can look in ourselves and see who we are right now. And then when you see who you are right now, by looking really deep, you can start to ask the question, is this really right for me? And when you find certain things are not right for you, you then recognize that oftentimes it is because you are trying to please someone, or you're trying to be or live a comfortable life. You're trying to follow the rules that are set before you, that you're afraid to break because of consequences. Everyone's going to have a different version of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable for them, and in different levels of their authenticity, there are certain things that they're going to tolerate, and then certain things that they cannot tolerate anymore. So in this process of looking in to see, are you just tolerating this because you want a comfortable life? Or are you, because in life there are always going to be things you need to tolerate, or are you looking to, or are you becoming more and more authentic and recognizing that you're tolerating certain things because of an old viewpoint, that you've seen things a certain way before and now it doesn't align with you anymore, but your ego sees something as wrong and your ego is tolerating it, but you recognize that it's a good thing and what you need. There's a difference there between you tolerating because you're holding yourself back, or an aspect of you that has an old belief that is tolerating something that it doesn't fit for you anymore, and you tolerating becomes an old program of an old version of yourself that you're learning to let go. So this is not easy. It's not something that you just get overnight. Not most of us. And a lot of times when you start being more authentic, you can be much more confrontational. And this can be sometimes a difficult transition for everybody involved, including yourself. And oftentimes we avoid the struggle, the challenges, because we want to remain comfortable. And in that remaining comfortable, are you tolerating a version of yourself that you can feel more and more is really not who you are? When you start becoming more truthful to who you are, when you start really being yourself, you're going to notice that life at first tends to feel a bit more difficult. So you want to take this in steps, because you might not be ready to jump in fully right away. Your voice might shake. You might find your whole body is shaking as you're stepping into your authenticity. You might find yourself being nervous. Levels of anxiety might jump in because a part of you doesn't want to face certain realities of yourself and the challenges that come with it. You may have built a comfortable life, but it might not be the life that you really want. And when I say the life you really want, I'm not necessarily speaking about getting a certain job or owning a certain type of car or rich or being famous, and at the same time I am speaking about those things. But what I'm really trying to say is, are you living your life in a way that has other people's opinions about what you should do involved in your decision making for how you should live? Or are you taking the steps to live your life and do things the way you want to, regardless of the judgments of others? This can lead to a more simplified life or a more complicated life, and anything in between. But it takes a lot of courage. And this is the message I'm really trying to send here. And hopefully it inspires you, motivates you to find the courage to take those steps for yourself, because from what I've found, you will feel the most intense, beautiful sense of freedom that you've ever felt in your entire life. I'm going to give you a very simple example. A lot of people don't want to seem eccentric or eccentric, however you pronounce that. They're afraid of what people think about them if they do certain things. And for me, I lived my life that way quite a bit. And I didn't realize how much of a prison it was. So during the first year, I used to live in an apartment where my front porch, was facing a main road in town. A lot of traffic, foot traffic, and a lot of cars as well. And I used to go challenge myself to change myself, because I was interested in meditation. I was interested in doing the new things that I was interested in doing, but not being limited to doing those things in a secluded way or place away from people, because I seen the value in being who I was, regardless of who was around me. So I started to go onto my front porch and started meditating right there in front of everybody passing. I would lay down on the porch and just relax. A position they call in yoga Savasana. The name is not important, but to me, to lay down on the floor, on the ground there, which is actually really good for your spine, by the way, to just lay there on the hard porch. First of all, a lot of thoughts like, people are going to think I'm going to lay down on the porch, which is dirty. Somebody might walk in poop and look at this guy. He's probably stepping in or laying down where someone just stepped with shit on their shoes. And all these thoughts would come into my head. And while I was laying there, there was a certain struggle of wanting to run away from other people's judgments, which are only actually my judgments of myself that I think others are making of me. But at some point, I let it go. And I started enjoying it. I started doing it. And that's just one example of one thing. Meditating and laying down and doing these things that most people would think is that guy's kind of weird. But I really wanted to do that. I really wanted to do those things. So I did them. And I got over the voices in my mind. I dropped them. I surrendered to my higher self, if you will. The authentic version of who I am. I accepted it and I stepped into the role. I stepped into, not the role, who I am in many different layers as I'm still learning. And I cried. Oftentimes I would cry right there on the porch because this strange sense of freedom, the most intense sense of freedom would just wash over me that I didn't even realize would happen. And these are the types of experiences that are the proof that learning to be who you are and stepping into the role of who you are, which is not a role, but learning to just be who you are and then being who you are, is the whole point of life. Because the freedom you feel is the proof that living any way except for your way is a form of prison. So I don't know. There's a lot of these things you need to experience for yourself, and for you it might be learning to sing in front of people. Whatever it is, for me it was something that simple. For you it might be much more complicated. It might be much more simple as well. So I'll leave you with that. So wherever you are around the world, whatever time it is that you're watching this video, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Peace.